There is a reason your attention stopped here today, and before you move any farther, allow yourself to become completely present with this moment. Something inside you recognized this message before your mind ever tried to explain it. That quiet feeling is not an accident, and it is not your imagination. Life has a mysterious way of placing certain moments directly in front of us when our spirit is finally prepared to receive them. The beginning of July is one of those moments. This is far more than another page turning on a calendar. It is the crossing point between one season of your life and another, the invisible line where an old reality quietly comes to an end, so a new one can finally begin. If these words have reached you today, then receive them with an open heart, because they carry a purpose that extends beyond ordinary coincidence. You have arrived at the entrance of a month, filled with extraordinary possibility. But before you can fully recognize what is waiting ahead, you must first understand why you have been brought here now. Wisdom rarely appears in the form we expect. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a simple message, a quiet realization, or a moment that seems ordinary until everything afterward begins to change. This message is not meant for every person who hears it. It is meant for the soul who continued moving forward without applause, for the one who carried invisible burdens that nobody else could measure, for the person who endured uncertainty, delays, unanswered questions, and intense spiritual pressure without ever receiving a satisfying explanation. If those experiences describe your journey, then this moment belongs to you. You have been chosen to hear these words because your story has already been shaping you for what comes next. Before we continue, commit yourself completely to this experience. If your spirit recognizes the truth in this message, I invite you to subscribe to the channel right now. Join our community so you never miss the guidance meant specifically for your path. Stay connected, remain attentive, and allow yourself to absorb every layer of what is about to unfold, because these words are not intended merely to offer information. They are meant to awaken recognition within you, to remind you of something your soul has always known, but your human mind may have forgotten. Listen with more than your ears, because something greater is communicating through this moment. For a very long time, you interpreted the waiting as evidence that something was wrong. You wondered whether every delay was proof that you had somehow failed, whether every season of silence meant you had been forgotten, overlooked, or left standing while everyone else moved ahead. Those conclusions felt real because pain has a way of convincing us that absence is rejection. Yet what if the story you have been telling yourself has never reflected the deeper truth? What if every difficult night when sleep refused to come was quietly strengthening your spirit? What if every prayer that seemed unanswered was being positioned at exactly the right place and time? What if every opportunity that disappeared was not closing against you, but redirecting you toward something far more aligned with who you were becoming? The truth is that you have never been excluded from your destiny. You've been prepared for it. Certain opportunities cannot be entered through determination alone. They require a soul that has matured under pressure, a heart that has learned patience through uncertainty, and an inner frequency that has been refined through experiences most people would have walked away from. Throughout this entire season, even during the moments when you questioned your own progress, transformation continued beneath the surface. Your growth did not stop simply because you could not see it. Like roots expanding beneath the earth before a tree ever rises into the sunlight, your spirit continued evolving while the visible world appeared motionless. Hidden beyond your awareness, forces far older and wiser than your understanding have been arranging circumstances with remarkable precision. Every piece has been moving into its proper place, not hurriedly, but perfectly. That unseen preparation has now reached its completion as July begins. Ahead of you stands a doorway that is much more than poetic imagery. It represents a genuine energetic passage directly connected to the purpose your life was always meant to fulfill, and the destiny your soul has been growing toward. What you are about to recognize may feel almost too powerful to comprehend at first, because awakening often arrives with overwhelming clarity. Yet that discomfort is part of the transformation. Once this doorway opens, its movement cannot be reversed. Those who doubted your potential will have no authority over it. Circumstances that once delayed your progress will lose their influence. Even the older versions of yourself that once operated from fear, insecurity, or hesitation will no longer possess the power to keep you confined. This opening exists beyond human approval, beyond personal opinion, and beyond external control. Fear cannot command it. Doubt cannot prevent it. Limitation cannot contain it. It responds only to divine timing, and the season appointed for that timing has finally arrived. Looking back, you may realize that everything appearing blocked throughout the past was never truly denied. Those paths remain closed because they belong to this exact moment rather than an earlier chapter of your journey. You have probably spent countless hours wondering why certain people gradually disappeared from your life, why relationships dissolved without satisfying explanations, and why loneliness often surrounded you even while you stood among crowds. Those experiences felt painfully personal. They resembled abandonment, rejection, and loss. Yet beneath those appearances, another process was quietly unfolding. You were not being forgotten. You were being separated. Every distraction that could have weakened your focus was being removed. Every energy that no longer matched the direction of your future was creating distance. Every attachment incapable of surviving the level you are entering naturally released its grip. What is preparing to enter your life cannot thrive inside clutter, confusion, or divided attention. It requires sacred room to exist, uninterrupted space where purpose can fully develop. That space could only be created through seasons of distance, silence, and solitude. What seemed empty was never empty at all. It was being carefully prepared. Now that the clearing has been completed, it is ready to receive something far greater than anything that previously occupied it. Along your path there have been private battles that almost no one will ever completely understand. There were inner conflicts you carried without speaking, moments when uncertainty whispered that surrender would be easier, nights when the silence became so heavy you questioned whether anyone truly saw your struggle. Still, despite every temptation to quit, you continued taking another step. Those unseen victories possess enormous significance, even if the world never celebrated them. No audience witnessed your endurance. No applause followed your determination. Very few people recognized the courage required simply to continue believing when visible evidence seemed absent. Yet those hidden seasons became the very place where your deepest strength was formed. Every challenge strengthened foundations that cannot easily be shaken. Every hardship refined qualities that comfort never could have produced. The person standing here today is no longer the same person who entered those dark seasons. You have been shaped into someone capable of carrying what is now approaching, and as this realization settles within you, you are ready to understand why everything had to unfold exactly this way before the next part of the journey could finally reveal itself. If this message brought you peace today, please subscribe and walk this new path with us. Your destiny is calling, and we are here to help you answer it. Every moment you decided to keep moving forward, even when answers refused to appear and certainty remained out of reach, you were accomplishing far more than you understood. With every difficult step, your spirit was becoming steadier, your inner foundation was growing stronger, and your life was quietly drawing into harmony with a purpose far greater than anything visible around you. That invisible preparation has not been wasted. It has been leading you toward a completely different kind of challenge. The season ahead is no longer asking whether you can survive hardship. Instead, it is asking whether you are ready to receive everything you have spent so long becoming worthy of. The lesson is no longer endurance alone. It is expansion. It is allowing yourself to embrace a reality larger than the one you have accepted until now. There is an unmistakable quality surrounding this month that feels unlike anything that came before it. Even if you struggle to explain it with words, some part of you already recognizes that the atmosphere has changed. The energy surrounding the beginning of July carries a different rhythm, a heightened vibration that has been gathering strength through countless unseen moments long before you became consciously aware of it. Nothing about this arrival is sudden. What is unfolding now is the natural result of a process that has been developing patiently beneath the surface, preparing every part of your journey for this exact point in time. If you become still for a moment, you may notice that your own heart has already begun responding to that change. Perhaps there has been a quiet restlessness that you could never fully identify. A gentle sense of expectation, or the persistent feeling that your life is approaching a turning point from which there will be no return. That awareness deserves your attention because it is not fantasy and it is not wishful thinking. It is the language of your intuition recognizing movement before your physical eyes are able to witness it. Your inner knowing has sensed that something significant has already begun, and the transformation approaching your life is not limited to one small area or one temporary improvement. It reaches far beyond that. It has the potential to reshape everything you believed your future could become. At this very moment, you are standing between two versions of yourself, and that place often feels unfamiliar because it belongs fully to neither the past nor the future. The identity you once carried no longer fits the person you have become, yet the next version of yourself has not completely emerged into the light. Existing between those realities can create uncertainty, emotional tension, and the unsettling feeling that the ground beneath you has become less predictable than before. Yet there is nothing accidental about this experience. This is precisely where genuine transformation always begins. Before the external world reflects change, the internal world must first be rebuilt. The old identity gradually releases its hold while the new one quietly forms beneath the surface. That invisible reconstruction is taking place within you now, whether you fully recognize it or not. The uncertainty you have been interpreting as confusion is actually evidence that your inner world is reorganizing itself. What appears motionless from the outside is filled with hidden activity beneath the surface, where every unseen adjustment prepares the visible changes that will eventually follow. Everything now depends upon one deeply personal question that only you can answer. Are you willing to place your trust in what your eyes have not yet confirmed? Can you remain faithful to a future that has not completely revealed itself? The next chapter of your life cannot be understood through logic alone, nor will it be supported entirely by visible proof. It asks for something more profound than certainty. It asks for faith that exists before evidence arrives, confidence that survives unanswered questions, and trust that remains steady even while circumstances appear unchanged. Life is inviting you to continue holding that inner certainty just a little longer, to remain grounded in what your soul already senses despite the absence of immediate confirmation. If you choose to remain rooted in that quiet confidence, what unfolds next will reach beyond simple surprise. It will permanently redefine your understanding of what is truly possible. In reality, the movement has already begun. If you become quiet enough to notice it, you can feel it flowing through your life like a calm current moving beneath still water. The energetic atmosphere surrounding your journey no longer resembles the one that existed before. Circumstances that once seemed impossibly heavy have started releasing their grip. Thoughts that previously dominated your mind no longer possess the same authority over your emotions. Even if dramatic external evidence has not yet appeared, something meaningful has already shifted within your inner world. That is how authentic transformation always unfolds. It rarely announces itself with dramatic displays. More often, it begins through gentle internal adjustments that slowly expand outward until every area of life reflects the change that first occurred inside. The universe does not always reveal its work immediately. Many of its greatest movements happen quietly, arranging every detail long before the results become visible. Without fully realizing it, you have already stepped into that invisible current of change. Throughout your journey, there were both visible circumstances and unseen influences that repeatedly slowed your progress. Familiar patterns continued repeating themselves. Delays appeared without logical explanation. Obstacles emerged at the exact moments when you believed you were finally moving forward. It often seemed as though an invisible force continually interrupted your momentum, convincing you that resistance would never end. Yet those barriers were never designed to define your future. They existed only for a season, preserving alignment with the timing that would ultimately serve your highest purpose. That season is beginning to conclude. Something that once held tremendous weight over your path is gradually releasing its hold. Opportunities that once appeared completely inaccessible are beginning to reveal small openings. Although the complete picture has not yet unfolded before you, the resistance itself is no longer as powerful as it once seemed. What previously stood firmly against your progress has begun surrendering its influence, allowing new possibilities to emerge where limitation once existed. None of these developments are accidental. every apparent setback, every unexpected change in direction, and every occasion when life refused to follow your carefully designed plans has been quietly positioning you for a destination more precise than you could have imagined. Even if your present circumstances differ greatly from your original expectations, you are being guided toward exactly the place where you are meant to stand. Positioning often disguises itself as uncertainty. It can resemble confusion, stillness, or the uncomfortable feeling that everyone else is advancing while you remain in the same place. Yet beneath those appearances, extraordinary precision is at work. The universe has been arranging countless details beyond your awareness, bringing people, circumstances, timing, and opportunities into perfect relationship with one another, so that everything arriving next will enter your life under the conditions required for lasting success. You have never been wandering without direction. You have been carefully placed with intention. As this truth becomes clearer, another realization naturally follows. Not every person who entered your life was meant to continue beside you forever. Accepting that reality may have brought deep emotional pain when those separations first occurred, yet with greater understanding comes a different perspective. Every individual who stepped away, every relationship that naturally came to an end, and every connection that gradually transformed fulfilled a purpose within your journey. Their departures were never meaningless. They became part of the preparation that created room for everything your next season is now ready to receive, and that understanding opens the way for the next layer of this unfolding transformation. Every person who crossed your path fulfilled a role, even if that role ended the moment it had accomplished its purpose. Some entered your life to awaken lessons that could not have been learned any other way. Others reflected pieces of yourself that remained hidden until you saw them through another person's presence. Still others simply belonged to an earlier chapter and could not continue into the reality you are now growing toward because the energy shaping your future no longer matched the place where they were meant to remain. Their absence should never be mistaken for defeat or rejection. It was part of a greater realignment that quietly removed what no longer belonged so that what truly belongs could arrive without obstruction. As painful as those separations may have felt in the moment, they cleared space for relationships, opportunities, and connections capable of walking beside the person you are becoming rather than the person you once were. When you honestly look back over everything that has happened, it becomes impossible to deny how deeply you have changed. The way you interpret life's challenges is no longer the same. Your willingness to tolerate situations that drain your spirit has diminished. The standards you hold for yourself have evolved. Your understanding of people, your perception of the world, and even the conversations you have with your own heart now come from a completely different place. Real growth rarely announces itself while it is happening. Instead, it often disguises itself as confusion, endings, uncertainty, or the uncomfortable feeling that everything familiar is falling apart. Yet beneath those experiences, something extraordinary has been unfolding. Layer by layer, you have been releasing identities that no longer reflect your true nature. Old habits have gradually lost their hold. Outdated beliefs have begun dissolving. Your awareness has expanded beyond the limits that once defined your thinking. Because of that inner evolution, the life that once felt comfortable no longer possesses enough space to contain who you are becoming. Every transformation eventually reaches a turning point where hesitation gives way to certainty, where questions quietly surrender to unmistakable understanding. You are moving steadily toward that moment now. Before long, the evidence will become impossible to overlook. Changes that once existed only within your inner world will begin revealing themselves through visible circumstances. Possibilities that previously seemed distant or almost impossible will gradually take shape in ways that feel both natural and undeniable. You will not need to struggle to force those moments into existence, nor will you have to exhaust yourself chasing what already belongs to you. They will unfold with such remarkable harmony that their timing will speak for itself. Throughout this entire journey, the universe has never lost sight of your progress. It has simply been waiting until every necessary piece reached its proper place before revealing that none of your effort, patience, or endurance had ever been meaningless. That confirmation is much closer than your present perspective allows you to see. Yet just before a profound breakthrough arrives, there is almost always one final moment when uncertainty attempts to reclaim your attention. Fear whispers familiar stories. Doubt invites you to retreat toward what feels safe, simply because it is familiar. Countless people reach this stage only to stop moving forward. They question everything they have believed. They abandon the very threshold they spent so long trying to reach because the unknown feels more intimidating than the discomfort they already understand. Your path is different. Returning to who you once were is no longer possible because too much within you has changed. You have walked through experiences that reshaped your spirit. You have survived seasons that demanded more courage than anyone else could fully appreciate. You have grown beyond the limits that once defined you. This moment is not asking you to step backward. It is inviting you to continue with even greater confidence. If the pull toward your old patterns feels stronger than usual, recognize it for what it truly is. You are standing remarkably close to a powerful moment of alignment, and the closer you come to meaningful transformation, the more intensely the familiar may attempt to draw you back. Soon the pieces of your story will begin fitting together with surprising clarity. Delays that once appeared meaningless will reveal their hidden purpose. Pain that seemed impossible to justify will uncover the wisdom it quietly carried. Long seasons of waiting will suddenly make sense within a much larger picture that could never have been understood while you were living through it. Events that once looked disconnected will reveal themselves as essential parts of one carefully woven journey. Losses will expose the role they played in making room for something greater. Closed doors will explain why they never opened, and unexpected detours will reveal why they guided you exactly where you needed to arrive. This realization offers far more than intellectual understanding. It brings deep peace because you finally recognize that nothing was wasted. Every experience, every challenge, and every unexpected change became part of the path leading you toward this very season of your life. A remarkable moment is approaching when your perception will shift so completely that it will feel as though a curtain has quietly been lifted from your eyes. Suddenly, what remained hidden within ordinary life will become unmistakably clear. This goes beyond simple realization. It is a profound revelation that emerges not from endless thinking, but from an inner certainty that resonates far deeper than logic alone. Something within your own spirit begins recognizing a truth that has always existed, waiting patiently until you were ready to perceive it. Connections that once appeared unrelated will suddenly fit together. Apparent disorder will reveal an underlying pattern. Places that once felt empty will become filled with meaning you could never previously recognize. This awakening will not arrive with dramatic fanfare. Instead, it will unfold gently, almost quietly, yet its influence upon your life will be impossible to deny. When it arrives, there will be no need to convince yourself that it is real because every part of you will immediately recognize its authenticity. Perhaps you have already begun noticing the earliest signs. Your relationship with your own intuition has become noticeably different. The quiet voice within you no longer feels as uncertain as it once did. It has become steadier, more refined, and increasingly accurate. You are beginning to recognize the truth of situations before external events reveal it. You understand people beyond the words they choose to speak. You sense the emotional atmosphere surrounding places and experiences in ways that once seemed impossible to explain. None of this exists only within your imagination. It is evidence that your inner world is becoming increasingly aligned with truth itself. As that harmony deepens, your perception naturally expands beyond appearances. Illusions lose their influence. Surface impressions become less convincing. You begin recognizing what is genuine beneath what is merely visible. The sharper this awareness becomes, the more naturally it will lead you toward every place, person, and opportunity that belongs within your path. What once appeared subtle will soon become unmistakably obvious. The universe has always communicated through countless quiet forms, and you are entering a season when those messages will become clearer than ever before. Repeating patterns will begin attracting your attention. Symbols will appear with unusual consistency. Circumstances will align with remarkable precision, creating moments that feel almost impossible to dismiss as coincidence alone. Timing will repeatedly unfold with extraordinary accuracy. Encounters will carry a significance that reaches beyond ordinary chance. Guidance will arrive exactly when your heart is ready to receive it. None of these experiences exist without purpose. They are gentle confirmations reminding you that your steps are being directed with extraordinary care. The more fully you remain present, the more clearly you will recognize that every stage of your journey has been leading you towards something already prepared, long before you could see it. There was a time when fear dictated many of your decisions, when uncertainty convinced you to hesitate, and when doubt repeatedly persuaded you to remain where it felt safe, rather than move toward what called your spirit forward. That season is beginning to lose its influence because something essential inside you has changed. The fears that once seemed overwhelming no longer possess the same authority over your life, and that quiet shift is preparing you for everything that is ready to unfold next. Although those old fears may still occasionally appear within your thoughts, they no longer possess the authority they once held over your life. Their presence has changed because your relationship with them has changed. Instead of seeing them as permanent truths, you are beginning to recognize them as fading echoes left behind by a version of yourself that no longer defines who you are. They belong to an earlier season, one that served its purpose and has now reached its conclusion. As your awareness continues expanding, fear gradually loses its influence. It becomes something you can acknowledge without surrendering to it, something you can understand without allowing it to determine your choices. Rather than controlling your direction, it simply reminds you how far you have already traveled. Because of this quiet transformation, you are discovering the courage to move toward possibilities that once seemed completely beyond your reach. A remarkable point is approaching when every confusing experience, every unexpected detour, and every unanswered question begins fitting together into one unmistakable picture. What once appeared scattered and disconnected will suddenly reveal an elegant order that has been present all along. You do not have to struggle to create that moment because it cannot be manufactured through effort alone. It arrives naturally when your spirit has become fully prepared to receive it. As that alignment unfolds, you will notice your life responding in ways that feel surprisingly effortless. Circumstances will begin cooperating instead of resisting. Opportunities will emerge without constant struggle. Meaningful relationships will develop with a sense of ease instead of conflict. None of this will be the result of random fortune. It will reflect the harmony created through every lesson you have lived, every challenge you have survived, and every inner change that has quietly reshaped you. The more completely this alignment strengthens, the more clearly it will guide each step toward the place where you have always been meant to stand. There were many seasons when it seemed as though your dedication existed unnoticed, as if your intentions disappeared into silence without receiving any response. Yet nothing about your journey has ever been overlooked. Every sincere thought, every quiet act of perseverance, every decision to continue despite uncertainty has carried meaning beyond what you could immediately recognize. Nothing has been forgotten. The universe is neither absent nor indifferent. It continually responds to the energy you embody, the frequency you maintain, and the intentions you consistently nurture within yourself. Now that your inner world has reached a new level of harmony, that response is beginning to reveal itself through your outer reality. What you have been sending into life is returning with increasing clarity, no longer appearing as isolated moments, but reflecting the person you have gradually become. Certain moments arrive that quietly redefine everything that follows. They divide one chapter from the next so completely that life can never return to what it once was. You have reached one of those defining moments. This is the point where your path begins turning toward an entirely different direction. Although the complete picture has not yet fully unfolded before your eyes, your spirit is already sensing the movement. After such a long period that seemed filled with waiting and stillness, momentum is finally returning. Something that has remained hidden for a long time is beginning to reveal itself. This is not the conclusion of your story. It is the opening of an entirely new season, one capable of carrying you farther than any previous chapter ever could. Once this transformation fully settles into your life, returning to your former way of being will no longer be possible. The reality waiting ahead reaches beyond a simple improvement in circumstances. It touches the deepest parts of your identity. Your understanding of purpose becomes clearer. Your direction becomes more intentional. The person emerging through this process carries greater wisdom, greater confidence, and a far deeper awareness than ever before. None of this requires force because genuine transformation cannot be rushed. You are naturally growing into the life that has been quietly waiting for your arrival. As you continue walking forward, your view of yourself will become increasingly clear. Your journey will begin making sense in ways it never has before. Every experience that once seemed disconnected will reveal its contribution to bringing you exactly where you are today. Nothing about this next chapter is random. You are stepping into something far more meaningful, something that has existed as part of your path long before you recognized its presence. Even now, an almost imperceptible change is taking place beneath the surface, as though something that remained closed for a very long time has finally begun responding. While your physical eyes may not yet recognize it, your spirit already feels its movement. Deep within you exists a place that identifies truth before visible evidence ever appears, and that place has already begun responding to what is unfolding. The doorway that once appeared impossibly distant no longer carries the same separation. What once seemed firmly closed is gradually opening. It is responding to your growth, to your maturity, and to the person you have become through every experience that shaped you. Nothing about this process is accidental or sudden. It represents the natural result of countless unseen elements finally arriving in perfect harmony. As the opening becomes wider, you will understand that your task was never to force your way through resistance. Your true work was becoming the individual capable of entering effortlessly when the proper time arrived. Everything entering your life from this point forward carries a different quality than what you experienced before. The uncertainty that once surrounded your path begins fading, instability gives way to steadiness, constant questioning is replaced by quiet confidence. Instead of exhausting yourself chasing what continually escapes your grasp, you will notice experiences arriving with a sense of natural belonging. There will be no need to convince, pursue, or tightly control what genuinely aligns with your spirit. It will arrive peacefully because it already recognizes where it belongs. That quiet sense of harmony becomes the unmistakable sign that something is truly meant for you. What belongs within your path does not thrive through confusion or conflict. It reveals itself through calm, clarity, and an undeniable feeling of inner peace. As this fresh energy becomes increasingly present, you will recognize it not because you forced it into existence, but because every part of your being naturally resonates with it. There was once a time when familiar experiences seemed to repeat themselves endlessly. Different people appeared while carrying the same lessons. New situations somehow recreated old emotional patterns. It often felt as though life continued presenting identical challenges wearing different faces. That repeating cycle is reaching its conclusion. The reason is simple. You have changed too deeply to continue attracting the reality that once reflected your previous state of being. Your energy has matured. Your awareness has expanded beyond former limitations. Because your inner frequency is no longer the same, the experiences that once matched it can no longer remain. This explains why certain opportunities quietly disappeared, why some connections naturally came to an end, and why specific circumstances never returned despite your expectations. None of those endings represented failure. They reflected your evolution. As your inner alignment continues rising, your external experiences will increasingly mirror the person you have become, rather than the person you once believed yourself to be. Even now, there remains one final layer, gently dissolving from your life, one last burden preparing to release its hold. At times, the process may stir powerful emotions. At other moments, it may feel unexpectedly intense or temporarily confusing. Yet this is not evidence that something has gone wrong. It is the final clearing that prepares every part of your life for complete transformation. Here you release everything that no longer belongs within your future. Lingering doubt, hidden fear, and old attachments quietly lose their place within your heart. This process does not exist to diminish your strength. It exists to restore your freedom. The life preparing to enter requires your full presence, your complete openness, and your deepest alignment. As this final weight disappears, you will notice a remarkable lightness replacing what once felt heavy. Your vision becomes clearer. Your spirit feels steadier. You recognize a readiness that has never before existed with such quiet certainty. The blessing you have anticipated for so long may arrive through circumstances entirely different from the image you created in your imagination. It may challenge the expectations you carefully built while ultimately surpassing everything you believed possible. That happens because what genuinely belongs to you is never confined by the limits of your current perspective. The universe always operates beyond the boundaries of what the human mind can presently predict. And what is preparing to unfold has been designed according to a wisdom far greater than anything you have been able to envision until now. And what it is bringing into your life is designed to align with your highest good, not just your current desires. When it arrives, you will recognize it not because it matches your expectations, but because it resonates with your truth. There was a time when you were not ready for what is coming, when you needed more growth, more understanding, more experience. But that time has passed. You are ready now. Even if part of you still questions it, readiness does not mean perfection. It means alignment. It means you have reached a point where you can receive what is meant for you without resisting it, without doubting it, without pushing it away. You have done the work, even in ways you did not fully recognize at the time. And now you stand in a place where you can step forward without hesitation. This is the moment you have been preparing for. There were dreams you held on to, visions of a life that felt distant, almost impossible at times. You may have questioned whether those dreams were realistic, whether there was something you could ever truly experience. But those dreams were not random. They were glimpses of what was possible for you, reflections of a reality that was always within reach. And now that distance is closing. What once felt far away is moving closer, becoming more tangible, more real. You are no longer just imagining it. You are moving toward it. And as you continue forward, you will begin to see those dreams take shape in ways that feel both familiar and new. Now comes the moment where everything becomes real, where the door is no longer just opening, but inviting you to step through. This is where you choose whether to move forward or remain where you are. Fear may still appear, doubt may still whisper, but they no longer have the authority they once did. You are not the same person who once hesitated, who once held back, who once questioned your own worth. You have grown, you have changed, and you are ready to move forward. So step through, not with hesitation, not with uncertainty, but with the knowing that this moment was always meant to happen. Because on the other side of that door is everything you have been preparing for. As you step fully into this new phase, something profound will begin to shift, not only within you, but in how the world responds to you. People who once overlooked you may suddenly notice you. Situations that once resisted you may begin to cooperate with you. It will feel unfamiliar at first, almost disorienting, because the reflection you're receiving from the outside world will no longer match the version of yourself you've been used to seeing. This is not illusion. This is transformation becoming visible. When your internal frequency changes, your external reality must adjust to meet it. You are not being seen differently by accident. You are being recognized at the level you have grown into, and as this continues, you will realize that you are no longer operating in the same reality you once were. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt something awaken inside you as you listened, then anchor that connection like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected to what is unfolding, because this is only the beginning. Your journey is not ending here, it is expanding. And what comes next will be greater than anything you have experienced before.